A lot of people, myself included, loved the Hellcat and said, why can't Springfield Armory make this as a full-size gun? So they did, sort of. They made the Echelon. It's got a bunch going for it. It's got a super grippy Hellcat grip texture, an awesome slide design, a great trigger, a modular fire control group, and a pretty awesome optic system. Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel, the only gun channel on YouTube that's dripping with that BDE. That's right, Big Dad Energy. Normally I like to say a dad joke after that delivery, but they sent me this gun with this super awesome Safariland 6000 series holster, which is mega tactical. So since they're asking for me to be tactical, I don't own any kit, so it's tough for me to look, cool and suburban dangerous. So I did the next best thing, which was I put on a Buc-ee's cap, some short shorts. I made my teenage son come to the range with me and film me as I shot this gun. I'm David, the second cringiest gun tuber you know, and this is the Springfield Armory Echelon. I really don't admire a gun company having to release a new striker fire polymer framed gun in 2023, but Springfield Armory really did their homework with this one. So first and foremost, the grip that it comes with. As I mentioned in the lead up, this is a modular fire control unit. And so what that means is you can take the actual serialized gun piece out of the frame. We'll touch on how to do that later, but they're actually supporting it with different grip modules. There's at least a medium and a small chassis that is going around, and the back straps are interchangeable in a really intelligent way. To remove a back strap, there's a button midway up the grip. You just kind of push in on it and the back strap kind of pops off just like that. You put it on is the reverse and you just kind of cram it on there and we're good to go. So let's talk about the geometry, because geometry is really important in how a pistol is going to sit in your hand, how you're able to stabilize the gun through the trigger press, and ultimately the recoil cycle is going to be largely informed by the geometry. So the geometry is very good. It's not quite a 1911 grip angle. It's more of, I would say, like an MNP or a CZP10 style grip angle. As somebody who shoots 2011s a bunch, it's not a far cry from where that is. The sculpting of the grip tang and how you're able to seat the gun very deeply into your hand and how much the trigger guard is relieved really sinks the gun down and gives you a lot of mechanical advantage when shooting this. This is a low bore axis gun design, which means that it doesn't have so much rotation, like meaning as the gun starts to shoot, it kind of lifts. It more goes back in a straight line, bottoms out on your hand, and then kind of jumps. That's how these low bore axis guns behave, and that's how this one behaves. As mentioned, the texture on this is the Hellcat texture, which if you haven't experienced it is really cool because you feel it. It doesn't feel too aggressive, but when you squeeze it like you mean it, it absolutely stays planted. It's the same grip texture that's also on the Prodigy, so it works really well. Some more little cool things about the frame that make it work really well is these memory pads are actually ledges, so if you're gripping the gun and your thumb lands on those ledge, and the underside of the trigger guard also has that same texturing, you can create a really good weld on the gun and really plant your hand to manage recoil, which the gun shoots very well. The next piece of kind of the geometry of the frame is the trigger reach and how you can get onto the trigger. Now, I saw two of my buddies at the range. I put this in their hands and they both agreed the geometry on this gun is very good, very easy to get onto the trigger. I gave it to my wife, who has small hands versus my XL style hands, and she was actually quite at home finding a reach on the trigger. One fine detail, and this is missed on a lot of modern guns, is the texture extends all the way up to basically the underside of the slide. That's where the fat part of your palm is getting in on the recoil control, and a lot of guns just leave that slippery. Springfield has texture there, which helps, plant a bunch of your strength into the gun. So the gun ultimately, it's a pretty nice gun to shoot. Before we get into the shooting, let's talk about the slide. The slide design is one of the better slide designs as far as the texture on how to grab the slide. Manipulations are super easy with these super deep serrations that they happen to have on this. Both the fore and aft, they've got kind of those dog ears at the back where you can kind of slingshot it if you want. It's a very, very good slide. It's got a melanite coating, which is basically a indestructible weapons finish. I realize all of this sounds sensational, but I truly do think that the design of the slide is really well done. The way that they did the optic system is next level. Rather than using a plate system with a bunch of different plates, they actually have the screw holes for the optics drilled and tapped into the slide, and then they have a series of pins that act as recoil bosses going up into the optic. So included in the box are the pins that allow this gun to take the RMR, the Delta Point Pro, and I believe the RMSC. So any optic with one of those footprints is going to fit on this slide. It's going to almost be like it was made for it. And to that point, it creates an opportunity for the sights to co-witness without very tall sights. So they're slightly taller than regular sights. They're not really suppressor height sights. Now, the sights that come with the gun are the Day Glow front with a tritium vial with a white U notch in the rear. It's a rounded notch. It's actually a pretty good sight picture, and the sights on this particular gun are a 6 o'clock hold. They were impacting about an inch high at 10 yards. One thing about the frame is it's fully ambidextrous, so my left-handed friends will have to find something else to complain about. It's one of their favorite things to do in the comments, guys, is talking about the controls being on this side of the pistol. And out of the box, the mag catch is on the right side, as is the slide stop, which is right there. So all right, let's talk about this trigger, because the trigger actually is pretty good. So the profile of the trigger and the ergos of the trigger, it is a very broad, wide trigger face with the trigger safety that goes entirely flush, so it doesn't like poke you in the center of your trigger pad. It sits just before the 90-degree mark on the brake, so when you stage it on the wall, that's kind of where it sits. Then on mine, it was a 5 3/4 pounds. When new, it's kind of dropped to something below that since shooting it and getting it broken in. And it is a little bit, kind of a moderate amount of over travel. And as a result, the reset is kind of moderate as well. The trigger is very easy to get your finger on and control because the frame is so good. It is pretty easy to connect with targets on the range. And shootability for this gun, this is just a 24-ounce pistol, so it's absolutely a lightweight pistol. It is very good. And the balance of the gun, like it's made to have a weapon light, because the balance with the weapon light is still pretty squared away. When you actually take, this is a Surefire X300, want to take that off the gun, balance without it is absolutely perfect. Like it absolutely just kind of rests. I can't really demonstrate, but it is almost perfectly balanced underneath the trigger guard, which is exactly how I like my pistols to be. And it's a little bit livelier without the light, but I actually prefer the way it shoots without the light. I think that kind of works a little bit better. And one thing that was interesting is this Safariland holster actually works without the light on there. Like it's supposed to be a light bearing holster, but it works both ways. So that was pretty cool. I was happy to see that. So as I mentioned, because the geometry of the frame is so good, the trigger ergonomics are so good, the quality of the trigger is so good, and the texture on the frame is just, the gun stays planted. So when you're trying to go fast, the gun stays planted. It's a low bore axis gun, so it's quick back to target. It's lightweight, so you can just throw it between targets. It's honestly a pretty easy gun to shoot quickly. Backed it up and I was shooting it at distance, and I mean, because the gun is so solid and planted, I was connecting at distance. It just was not a difficult gun to shoot well. Talking about reliability, I ended up putting about 300 rounds through the gun. That was about 200 rounds of Blazer Brass 124. I put about 25 rounds of MagTech 115s, 50 rounds of Bellom 124s, and then a smorgasbord of a bunch of different jacketed hollow points. Some kind of hard cast bear load. It was 148 plus P. Choice ammunition, uncompromised precision, 148 grain plus P hard cast air defense load. Air defense. Okay, that's actually not too bad to shoot, although it got carbon all over the left. Yeah, awesome. This gun fed all of the hollow points, absolutely no problems whatsoever. And the gun's response to the different ammunition didn't change a whole lot. Like, it wasn't notably difficult to shoot the heavier loads. Like, the gun took it with a smile and it was absolutely great. So what comes in the box with the gun? You're gonna get the Springfield Armory zipper gun sleeve. You're going to get 2 magazines, a 17 rounder and a 20 rounder. And just looking at it, guys, I can tell you that it doesn't look like it's gonna take the old XD mags. This is an old XDM magazine and it won't lock in. So let's talk about taking the fire control module out, because I ended up having to conceal some 4-letter words as I was learning how to take the gun apart. So to save you from scaring your children and dog, let's go through it. So field strip is going to be locking the slide to the rear, rotating the takedown lever down, and then you don't have to pull the trigger, the slide just comes straight off. Now the fun part, you just kind of He-Man out the little takedown lever, and you just keep kind of twisting and pulling until it eventually works its way free. Get out of there. And then with that off, you lift up on these tabs, and YouTube, be cool, this is just disassembly. I'm putting it back together too. So you end up lifting up on the slide stop, you're gonna pull the trigger just a little bit, and then you kind of pull it forward as you kind of pull the trigger, and it just kind of, whoa. And then just, and it just pops right out of there. But let's talk about the fire control unit with it popped out of there. Looking at it, it looks like, I mean, there's a high degree of polish on the different bars. They have good coatings on it. Like, it's a very well-made thing. So as far as putting it back together. It's basically the reverse. You're gonna start like with the front end kind of going down on that. You're just gonna kind of push it in, and you're gonna kind of keep pushing the trigger and pulling it to the backwards till it seats. We're good. Then you just kind of He-Man this little pin, just kind of rotating it till it kind of forces its way in there. So you're gonna get the lever to about the 6 o'clock position, and then you're gonna rotate it clockwise, and you're gonna kind of push and pull on the thing until it kind of pops in a spurting kind of way. Yep, there it goes. When you hear that click, you'll know you got it, and then you rotate it down to the 6 o'clock again, and you can put the slide back on, and you're off to the races. So it's a tough market to be releasing new polymer striker guns in, but I think Springfield did a pretty good job with the Echelon. If you'd like to save 7% at Optics Planet, you can use code HUMM at checkout. As always, I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.